Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to what we're hoping will be a regular occurrence during the period of the World Cup. It is our World Cup show, a specialized World Cup show, aiming to review and preview the performance of Africans in the World Cup in Qatar this year. It is being brought to you by AFSCOAN. Now, let me first take some time and tell you what AFSCOAN is all about. AFSCOAN is the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association. It is an association aimed to bring an identity and credibility to the job of African scouts and African coaches in Africa for Africans. And we're privileged to have over 600 members at the moment. Feel free to join us as well on join@afscon.com. It will come up at the bottom of your screen at some point. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel at AFSCOAN AFC. Now, we aim to be intentional about what we want to do. And all the time, we intend to bring in members of our association to be guest speakers during the show. We can do it because we want to show the world that we're able and capable of doing it. Right now, we have got our member, Daniel Honor Ibezim, a member, an esteemed member of AFSCOAN, a head coach of Honor Football Club in Nigeria, who is going to be our guest on this show. Daniel, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be
Daniel, here. Well, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time for the world of football generally, of course. As you know, AFSCOAN is big. We have got our tentacles in all parts of Africa, but most importantly, we have got esteemed members from the beautiful country called Nigeria. Now, we're going to come into Nigeria very shortly. However, at the moment, we would like to know, what are your thoughts on what is going on in Qatar at the moment? I bet you wish you were there.
Yes, definitely. I wish I was there. I mean, any sports-loving person obviously would want to be there, would wish to be there. But I've taken the time to watch lots of reports about the World Cup, about the preparations that Qatar had, going forward to this World Cup. I've watched a number of shows about it. I want to congratulate them because organizing a competition of this level, it's not easy. They've spent over $200 billion, which shows that they're very serious about this. They actually wanted this, and in a couple of hours, we would see, everything get started. And obviously, I'm expecting to see a very good World Cup. I'm expecting to see something that the fans will be happy about, because at the end of the day, the fans are the ones that make the game. Without the fans, then obviously there's nothing we are doing. So I'm pretty excited for this World Cup. I am sure that, obviously all World Cups are going to start, rather slow, and then excitement is going to kick off, especially as the big guns begin to prove their worth. Get more excited as the tournament, carries on. So I'm expecting Africa to see how to prepare, for a tournament of this magnitude, how to prepare, how to plan, and things to learn from Qatar. And big ups, big one to them. They've done very, very well for themselves. They've done very well.
Right. Well, I mean, it's wonderful. It's a great time to watch football on a daily basis. International football, the best of World Cups, best of world stars, the best of world stars playing at the top level of football. Francis is also a member of AFSCOAN, who has crisscrossed the world learning the trade of football coaching and scouting. Francis, if you can hear us, can you tell us a little bit about what you think about what's going on or what's about to start in Qatar?
Hi, yeah, quite interesting. It's very unusual to have like a World Cup in November and December. Um, I hope it's going to be a very good one. A lot of teams are actually kind of suffering the effect where, you've got Mane out, you've got Benzema out, you've got Kante and Pogba out. It's very unusual. I think it's going to be one which is going to be very evenly positioned or placed, should I say. Obviously, the heat is going to be a critical factor for everyone, whether it's South America, whether it's Africa, whether it's Europe, is going to be very, very critical. I hope it's going to be a very good one. I think Qatar, even though we've had a lot of negatives said about it, it seems like I think it's going to be one of the best facilities and everything. I think it's really going to be one of the best, to be honest. And I can remember the very first one I watched, which was 1978. It's showing my age, but I think this one's going to be really one of the best, to be honest.
Well, I mean, listen, you pointed out a very interesting point there about the injuries, and I think that we can have another full squads of 24 countries or 32 countries of injured players if you look at the number of injuries that have amounted over the course of the season. It will be unprecedented because a lot of players have been injured in the course of the season, and it's the first time we're having a World Cup where we cannot actually have a long period of recovery and camping for our teams before they go into the action. Daniel, as a coach of a football club, how important is it that players actually get the recovery time that is needed from injuries in order to participate in a big tournament? I'm going to take that again. I'm going to take it because we seem to have lost Daniel again.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question.
Okay.
That was one of my biggest any other the same worries, leaving club football straight up to the World Cup, no time to recover, no time to rest, and that's where you see players like Mane getting that injury. You've seen other players getting injured. It's not really good because this. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Carry on.
All right. Let me just repeat.
Francis, over to you.
Yes.
Recovery of players.
The recovery of players. I just feel, always look at it as a coach, you've got to really sort of, from the onset, be prepared that you're going to have injuries during the season. So as regards to recovery, I think you can't, if you my one is don't lay too much emphasis on so many players. I know teams have star players, and as a result of that, they kind of think, right, these are the ones that will carry us through. From my coaching ability, I like to think of, yes, we have star players, but what if something happens? And it's the what if that I tend to sort of concentrate a lot of and saying, right, okay, this can happen to this player, that can happen. So we need to build it up on a squad. So therefore, if it does happen, there's always a backup. As regards to recovery, I think you just have to treat it like any season. You do have players get injured during the season. How do the teams cope? They always have a plan B or a plan C. So regarding recovery, I just think let's just take it. Yes, it's a different tournament. It's the World Cup, But we still have where you have, take for instance, in the UK, you have the Premiership, but you still play Champions League, you still play Europa Cup. How do you cope when you have an injury? There's always a plan B. So for me, I just think just take it in a normal way. It's just the World Cup, but it's another tournament. We've got injuries. How do we cope and move on from there?
A lot of negativity has surrounded Qatar, as you've mentioned earlier on. A lot of stuff about the human rights, the migrant workers, and it's not been held by the established authority like FIFA, weighing in and talking about the migrant situation and talking about Europe being what they are and all that. The FIFA president made some really, really inflammatory statements, Francis, yesterday about the fact that, the exploitation of Africa or migrant workers by Europe for 3,000 years gone makes it unjustifiable for Europeans to complain about migrant workers and all that this year. There's also the issue of the rules and the laws of Qatar itself as a nation in terms of homosexuality, for example, alcohol. There's so much around Qatar, so much. I was involved in the bid that lost out to Qatar. I was working for England in the bid to host this tournament or the 2018 one, and we lost out to Qatar. A lot of allegations and claims of bribery, corruption, and all that. Now, how does a country like Qatar survive and build a legacy from this World Cup? Because it's not only about the football tournament, it's also about what happens afterwards. How does a country like Qatar build a legacy and reconnect with the world that has been alienated from them because of all these controversies?
Good question. Tough one to answer, to be honest, because if you look at it, FIFA knew where they wanted to take the World Cup to originally. They knew they wanted to do Europe, Africa, Europe, South America, and then to the Middle East. So obviously they were fully aware of all these problems which are at hand. I mean, it's not just something that's just started overnight. It's been there. If I may be able to deviate away, you still hear the same things being said in Dubai. You hear the same things said in Saudi Arabia or in Kuwait. These things were already known that it was an existing problem, but they chose to take the World Cup there. I feel I know it may seem a bit harsh, but let's just enjoy the football. There are so many other things happening around the world which we still haven't dealt with. And it seems to be now we're dealing with the Qatar issue, what happens afterwards. If I may deviate slightly away, Russia were given the 2018 World Cup. But what's happening now with Russia? And is anyone really saying anything about them? So I understand where everyone is coming from. I know it's harsh and I don't want to seem very unsympathetic, but let's just enjoy the football. We can't cure all the problems in the world, no matter what it is, no matter what we say. We can try our best, but we can't cure all the problems in the world. That's just my personal opinion.
Daniel, you have something to say about the controversy around Qatar?
Yes. Generally, people always had raised eyebrow when Qatar won the bid to host the World Cup. But like Francis have said, FIFA knew, and I think everybody generally knew their religion. It was a hint on how it was going to play out, and no surprises there. We've seen some kind of things come up like no beers in the stadium, no public show of affections, things like that. But I would tell people, you are coming into a different region, a different country. Try as much to acclimatize with them. Just go along with them. It's not the fault of Qatar. I wouldn't put the fault to Qatar because they bidded for the World Cup. All right, it is left for FIFA. FIFA is the regulatory body here to look at everybody and say, okay, this is the best person that we feel that can host the World Cup, knowing that you are bringing the entire world to a particular place, to be hosted, and everybody is coming with their own background, their own way of life. You understand? I think is where both parties would have met in the middle, but Qatar, all of a sudden decided they were not going to meet with some few things. They've stuck to their own way. There's nothing we can do now. We can only complain. But I tell people what's left to do is to enjoy the game. Go there. It's just 30 days. Enjoy football. Let's not focus on the politics because we want to focus on the politics too much. Let us focus on the politics outside of the competition. This is not the time to start focusing on the politics. So let's focus on the politics after the competition. Let's have a review. How did the tournament go? What can we learn from it? So I think that will be the best way to go about it so that we don't kill the joy, the spirit of the World Cup. That's my view on it.
Thank you. Don't forget, guys, people watching us, you're watching the Africa in Qatar 2022. It is a special World Cup show that we will be running periodically during the period of this World Cup in 2022 in Qatar, and it is brought to you by AFSCOAN. AFSCOAN is the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, and in AFSCOAN we're aiming to bring credibility, integrity, and an identity to high-level scouting and coaching in Africa by Africans. It's very important to us. It's very dear to our hearts. And over 600 members that we have got are all committed and passionate about the game of football and scouting and coaching in Africa by Africans. To join AFSCOAN, remember, join at afscon.com. It will come up at the bottom of your screen, and don't forget to subscribe to this our new YouTube channel, which is AFSCOAN AFC, which will bring you a lot more even as we go along, even beyond the World Cup itself. So thank you for staying with us as we go into further issues regarding this tournament. Now guys, the next thing I want to talk to you about, incidentally, as it so happens, and it is just a coincidence that you, my two guests, happen to be Nigerian. And it also is coincidental that I have served, I served as assistant manager to the Nigerian national team for about 6 years. And just when we were on the cusp of getting to the World Cup, we were fired. There's no two ways about it. You could say we were let go, they told us to shift to one side, but the truth of the matter is we were fired. And when we were fired with the party of Genotro and myself and the other crew, this big party in Qatar, which everybody is now aiming to go for, I'm calling people regularly in different parts of Africa. Where are you? Oh, I can't come to the show this week because I'm on my way to Qatar. Everybody wants to be in the party to Qatar, but we're not. Nigeria is not in that party. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Okay, so I remember the sacking of Genotro because that's basically what it was. I raised objection to it on my Facebook platform because I knew it was so sudden. And again, I don't like coaches being sacked, especially when you are in the middle of a qualifiers. This guy already taken us to the top of our group. We had only Ghana to defeat to go to the World Cup. Yeah, people said they didn't like his pattern of play, and I felt that was a very silly excuse because, one thing in football, you don't need to play fancy football. Not everybody's going to play tiki-taka. Genotro was giving us results, and basically in football, that's what you need. You understand? And for me, I felt letting him go at that particular period was I don't understand the reasoning behind it. And Eguavon came in, and again, it was too sudden because, again, when a coach goes to a team, he has to understand the team, understand the players. It's better for a coach to go in when there's no serious competition going on. You understand? So he can acclimatize with the team, they can know his style, know his pattern, and then they can, begin to get results. But going into a very decisive game, home and away, for against Ghana, our arch rivals, it was a lot of confusion in the team. We lacked that stability going into that match, and that cost us. It cost us. Already the signs were there in the Nations Cup already, and I knew that when we lost to Tunisia, I knew that it's going to be difficult for us against Ghana, and it happened. So it's nobody's fault. It's our own fault. We didn't do our homework very well. We can't blame Ghana. I mean, everybody wants to go to the World Cup. Ghana did their own homework. They planned, they executed their plan very well. And they're in the world. And if I look at the friendly we had with Portugal, I mean, I don't really believe that if we were at the World Cup, we are going to perform anything. Because, trust me, how many managers have we changed now in the space of 1 year? That's not a sign of a serious country. When it comes to football, it's not showing any positives for the fans, because it's telling us that we are not sure of what we are doing. When you're changing managers just like that, it's unheard of when a national team for a country is just changing managers. It's not club football. There has to be a certain kind of stability to the team, and for us we just have to plan ahead. US is hosting the next World Cup. That should be the next focus. We can't get it wrong. We have to get it right. So we have to learn from the mistake, and we have to just put that behind us and make sure that we get everything right, for the next World Cup.
Francis, on the 16th of November 2021, Nigeria played their last World Cup qualifying game against Cape Verde in Lagos, played a 1-1 draw. On the second day, the 17th of November 2021, Genatra and myself were invited in for a meeting to go and talk to the hierarchy of Nigerian football, to say that although you qualified us for the AFCOAN, although you have qualified us for the final stages of World Cup qualifying, your time is up. You need to go. And a year exactly to the day was 2 days ago in Portugal, in Lisbon, where Nigeria played Portugal. And the result was nothing short of embarrassing. It was 4-0. The performance was lethargic. And I have to say, I was sad. Now, I'm saying this to you, Francis, because I want your take on it, because I will tell you why I'm sad. I'm not sad that we were shifted. Coaches, the biggest problem of the job of coaches is that you always have to expect the sack anytime. But what makes me sad is the fact that I was watching a generation of football players of Nigeria who may never get the chance to play in a World Cup again. I look at Alexi Iwobi. I look at Trust Ekong. I look at Joe Aribo, all boys that we brought up when we were starting in the job in 2016. They are 26s and 27-year-olds now, and they didn't get the chance to go for the World Cup because of what I call the costliest and the silliest mistake Nigerian football made in modern times. Now, by 2026, these boys will be in their 30s. Not a lot of them will still go for a World Cup because Nigeria is a budding talent, is a brewery of talent. More talent will come up. So you cannot guarantee that Alex Iwobi will get a chance to go to the next World Cup. He will ruin his chance. And there's a whole generation of players, Ola Aina, Tyrone Ebuehi, a lot of them that we brought up that were not able to make the World Cup. Francis, what do you think? We're not in this party. We're not in Qatar. And the reason Nigeria is not in Qatar is because, in my mind, because the wrong decision was made exactly a year ago to the day.
Right. I'm going to give you a very honest opinion. I think with the Nigeria Federation, we do a lot of things on a knee-jerk response. We were coming along. It wasn't the best, but we were building and building and building. And I mean, you've introduced yourself. I didn't actually know you were part of the backroom staff, so I don't want to seem biased towards my opinion. But he was doing well. He was getting the young boys. He was building a generation. To me, it seems very much like what Arteta is doing at Arsenal. You know, the last 2 seasons haven't been the greatest, but now everyone's shouting Arteta, Arteta, one of the best, because the Arsenal board took time. They gave him the backing, they gave him the finances, they gave him the time to develop a team. That is what I feel should have been given to your guys. You should have been given that opportunity. It's we how would I say it? We don't have right now in Nigerian football, we don't have a vision of where we want to be. The Ghana game, I was actually there. I mean, you've been to Accra, you held out 0-0, you came to Lagos, I mean to Abuja, and it was just a simple task, to be honest, which was get one goal, shut up shop if you have to. It doesn't have to look beautiful, but be in Qatar. Now we're all sitting here now and we're all saying how wonderful it is to be in Qatar. If we had just done the basic stuff, we would have been there enjoying it. I'm not saying we would have done very well, and that's going to be honest, because if I look at the group that Ghana's in, it's a very tough group. And I'm going to read something from you, and I don't know how true this quote is. This is from Bruno Fernandes. He says, our match against Nigeria was not on the standard we wanted. The level was not on a world-class required standard. So here in Qatar, we will face the world's best. We wanted to play a tough national team, but all of them were already occupied. Nigeria was the only one available. They didn't test us at all. Now, the game itself against Ghana, for me personally, as a coach, I wouldn't have given 3 new debutants on such a high standard game like that. I felt it's a no. I would have brought them in later on, but I wouldn't have given them a debut as such. But considering you've got to understand certain things, the factors are like, it's a new stadium. They've never played in that stadium before. The heat, and the 3 that were given were European-based players. So they would still have had to acclimatize to the Abuja heat, which they really couldn't do it within how many minutes? A lot of things were they brought old players back in this last game. And I think with what your team were doing, or the previous manager was doing, was to bring in youth and build for the future. Even if we hadn't made it to this World Cup, but we would have still had something where, okay, we're building, we have a vision in hand. I don't think right now we actually have a vision in Nigeria. And that seems to be the problem. If we look at it now, what we should really do is probably go back, and it's something we're looking into, is going back to the under 15s. So by the time it's next 2026, 2027, we've got a good team. These 15-year-olds will be in their 20s. Spain did it. France did it. Argentina did it. Italy did it. Even Germany. What have we got to, what are we showing now? We're just sacking, not understanding what we're doing. So for me personally, I feel it was a shame he got sacked, or the team got sacked. I think they should have just left it. If they hadn't qualified for the tournament, then start a new era if they wanted to. That's the way I see it, to be honest.
Right. We will, because this is an Africa show, I just thought we would deviate a little bit, because sometimes, you need to let off steam a little bit. When you're looking at all the other teams, everything along the way, as preparation was going on for Qatar, as teams were arriving, as teams were being received, getting into the coaches, it just brought feelings of nostalgia to people like my personal self when we were in Russia going to the World Cup, and how we were preparing and how things were. And sometimes it's good to let out steam a little bit. We're going to leave that now and remind our viewers again, you're watching Africa, not Nigeria, Africa in Qatar 2022, which is a show that we intend to put up periodically during the World Cup in Qatar, just to preview and review the performance of Africa, especially not necessarily from a political point of view, but mostly from a tactical, technical, and coaching perspective. This program is coming to you from AFSCOAN. AFSCOAN is the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, an organization that is aimed to bring an identity, credibility to the job of scouts and coaches in Africa by Africans for Africa. Very important that because we get an influx of people from various parts of the world coming into Africa to come and coach. Some understand the rudiments of the game, some don't. But we don't care about it because we don't look inward at what we have got, the talent that we have got in scouting, the talent we have got in coaching. If you want to join AFSCOAN, where we're going to open up new opportunities, new openings for people, scouts and coaches, to actually be able to express themselves in clubs and national teams, go send an email to join@afscon.com. And don't forget, we've got a new YouTube channel on which you're watching this, AFSCOAN AFC. Subscribe to it so that even beyond the World Cup, you will see more of us. Now then, Nigeria, Bruno Fernandes has wrapped it up. Painful to hear, but he said it as it was. So we're no longer in the Big Five. The Big Five now is Cameroon, Ghana, Morocco, Senegal, and Tunisia. That is Africa's Big Five. No gainsaying. The top 5 countries in Africa are the ones who have gone to the World Cup. They are there on the biggest stage. Nigeria is not there, so we got to forget about that for now. And we can look into the Nigeria situation maybe another time in the future, if ever. However, talking about the Africa's Big Five, guys, talk to me. Senegal, Ghana, Tunisia, Morocco, and Cameroon. Who do you think will actually do something? It is 20 years since in the opening game of the World Cup in South Korea, Senegal stunned the world and beat the holders, world champions France, 1-0. I was there present live in that game, and my head was swimming. I was brimming with pride and joy that I was able to do this kind of thing. Now, there's a Big Five in Africa. They've got jobs to do to actually uphold and go beyond what they have done before in the past. Where do you see our successes, Daniel?
All right. First off, I think the 5 countries representing us, I think they are pretty much the best that we have right now going to this World Cup. There's no doubt about it. Looking at what the results they've gotten, the past few games, their friendlies, even the qualifiers, I think we can be sure of something from them. I'm personally looking at 2 countries that I know that would most likely leave the group stages and put up a good fight. Senegal and Cameroon. They are pretty much very used to this. They have a very good squad. And again, something that is even interesting to me is that all coaches of these 5 teams are African coaches. So there's no foreign, no European-based coach, coaching any of these sides. So these coaches, they know their boys, they know the game, they know what they can do. I'm expecting Senegal and Cameroon just because their groups and the kind of squad that they have. Ghana have a good squad, no doubt, but it's a very tough group they are in. It's not an easy group. Of course, there are going to be surprises here and there, and that's the beauty of football. Now, I can pick Cameroon and Senegal, and maybe Tunisia has something up their sleeves. And of course, we want them to surprise us. And that's the beauty of the game. I want to be surprised. I want to be taken unawares. One of the beautiful things about football is seeing underdogs win. And that is what I want to see. I want to see the underdogs say, hey, we're not just here to be among the numbers. We want to show that we have quality. We know how to play this game. We want to win. And basically, it's about the desire. Once they show that they have the desire to win, we're going to see it in their performance. But for me, I am picking Cameroon and Senegal to move out of the group stages to the round of 16 because of the quality they have. Yes, we know for Senegal, Mane, he has an injury, and it's obviously a big blow. He's one of their biggest players. But I always say something, one man is not going to be the entire person to carry the team. Everybody has to pull their own weight. They have Gueye, they have pulling. You know what? We have a player injured. Let's do this for him. Let everybody contribute their own quota, to the game, to the team, so that we can achieve their desired result. So I think it's going to be a good one for Africa. I think we can see 2 teams from Africa going to the next stage, to this round of 16, and it's very much possible.
Thank you, Francis. Obviously, we've got the big 5 in Africa. It's wonderful, but with Daniel's talked about 2 teams making it out of the group stages. My question to you is, what is the furthest do you think that any African team will go in this tournament, given the talent that is there, given the competition, given everything, considering everything, the management style and everything? Where do you see an African team? We've had a few instances. 1990, Africa got to the quarterfinals with Cameroon. 2010, Africa got to the quarterfinals through Ghana. 2002, Africa got to the quarterfinals through Senegal. Since then, though, since 2010, it's been quiet. We've only gotten out of the group stages. In Brazil, it was Nigeria. In Russia, none of us went out, qualified out of the group stages. There's a problem. We call ourselves the Big 5, but are we just a Big 5 because we're just Africa, but not Big 5 in the world? Can we actually say that we're not better than other continents that have made it even beyond into the quarterfinals? How far do you think we can go as Africa?
Personally, it would be quarterfinals again. Why I still maintain quarterfinals is that once you get out of the group and you start playing the knockouts, it's a matter of mentality. And I kind of feel in Africa, we still just haven't got that way of thinking that once you get out of the group, it's game by game. And how do we take it? And I think you'll find that's where the Brazilians, the Argentines, Uruguayans are slightly very different. They may have a very upsy-daisy group game, but as soon as they get out and it becomes a knockout series, they tend to know how to address it. I think that's where, as the African teams, we still haven't really got that. I would like to see us get to the semifinals. I would like us to win, even if it's a 3rd place match. I don't put it beyond any of the African teams to do that. But my reservation is that when they get to the next out of the group games, how do they mentally prepare themselves? It's a bit like you would say England. England seem to be where they get out of the group. As soon as it comes to penalty shootouts, their mind is switched off. Oh, we're going out, we're going to lose. And I think that's with Africa as well. We get to a stage where we'll get through the group, but then after that, okay, we've done our best and we're going home. And I think until we mentally change that sort of way of thinking, it's again going to be the quarterfinals. But I have a sneaky feeling for me, and I know my other Leonard colleague Daniel said he didn't mention Ghana, but I think Ghana will get far, and I think they will probably get to the semis if they do. I watched their game against Switzerland the other day. They looked compact. I mean, the scoreline was 2-0. It could have been a lot more. For me, that's personally the way I see it with Africa. I think we need to mentally get up here and believe in ourselves that it's not just a group game, it's not just the next round, but we can go as far as we want to go. Until we get that right, then I think, again, this one is quarterfinals. But I'd like to see an African team in the semifinals this year. I believe they can make it. Mentally, they change it, they'll be in the semifinals.
I think Daniel still has a bit of sour grapes in him because Ghana saw off Nigeria.
It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with that. It's just my own. Yeah. My own feeling is that it's a tough group. I don't see them going through it. I don't see they could surprise me. Yeah, but I don't see them going out of the group.
All right. Well, this is a good time for me to actually give you a little bit more background into what we do in AFSCOAN. AFSCOAN is actually a subsection of a bigger umbrella body called the African Football Club. The African Football Club is a club that brings together the whole of African football outside of playing, coaching, refereeing, administration, education, anything that is not the player's side, because we want to use it to unify Africa so that, anywhere we go, when we go for global tournaments and Nigeria is out, we don't go home thinking, well, who cares about Senegal and Ghana? As long as Nigeria is out, we're going home as well. No, we want to unify ourselves behind every African country that is still remaining in our global tournaments and give support and every manner of assistance to every African country. So Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Morocco, Egypt, they're all members of the big African committee, the big African family, and the African Football Club as a whole. Okay, now, one of the things that I need to point out to us is this. In many countries in Africa, we seem to be getting it wrong. Wrong in the sense that sometimes the talent is there. In fact, all the time the talent is there. What we haven't got sometimes is the administration, is the know-how, the technical or the administrative knowledge. Now, one country that seems to have got it right is Cameroon. Cameroon got it right by, one way or the other, getting an ex-player who knows what it is like to play and to play at the highest level, and made him the president of their football federation. And I have to say, knowing him very well and being very close to Sami Eto'o, I know that his personal intervention in that game, that final playoff game, saw Cameroon over the line to get them to qualify. So we cannot write them off. So I agree with Daniel that there will be surprises. Cameroon can go far. I think Ghana also got it right. Ghana got it right because when they wanted to make their change in coaching, the president and the administration of Ghana football took into cognizance what needed to be done. The people who know the game had to be brought in. The people who understood the game had to be brought in. People who understood players had to be brought in. And so they went with Otto Addo, and they went with Chris Hughton, and they went with George Boateng. They can't go wrong that way. They can't go wrong because these are guys who have polished themselves. Now we go back to the talk about AFSCOAN. AFSCOAN, I will always say, because I live and breathe AFSCOAN, it is the association, the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, that aims to give identity and credibility to high-level scouting and coaching in Africa by Africans. And that is where I come in with the Ghana situation. Because the Ghana situation tells us, and it shows to us, just how important it is for Africans to know their own people and know what they need to get the results that they needed. And they have done it, and they did it about my glorious, precious Nigeria, and they hopefully, we hope they will do it again in the future. Now then, we now go to Senegal. And Senegal created history in 2001, 2002. It wasn't only when they got to the World Cup that they created history, they did it even in qualifying for that World Cup. I was a part of that qualifying party, traveling with them and seeing how that group was emerging, including Aliou Cissé, who is their current manager, Elaji Diouf, Pape Bouba Diop of blessed memory, Tony Silva, Henri Camara, a lot of them, all friends of mine at the moment, Khalidou Fadiga. And we see how they got things together 20 years ago. Now, 20 years is a long time, but then it's not too long for them to reenact it. And we're waiting for them, we're looking forward to them doing something again in football in 2022 in Qatar. But they've got a very big challenge. Their biggest player is Sadio Mane. He's not there. He's not there. He's been ruled off this tournament through an injury that he sustained at the worst possible time. Francis, Senegal without Sadio Mane.
Right. I'm glad you rolled off all those many names of years and years back. If I remember when they played France, they were given no chance whatsoever. It was like, oh, they're colonial masters. They're not going to beat them. And what happened? They pulled off a major surprise. Personally, Sadio Mane is just one in many. During the Cup of Nations, I remember him missing a penalty kick, which they could have won. And then later on, he converted his penalty kick and they did win. Senegal are, I would call them lion hearts, just like Cameroon. They are well organized. They have a very good coach. With consistency, you can see they perform and they produce the results. I think, again, with Nigeria, that's one thing we haven't done. We haven't been consistent. But Senegal, very consistent. They've got the right backroom staff. They've got everything going. The players are down to earth. They're playing as a team and they're playing for themselves. I think Senegal can repeat that trick again.
And Daniel, you know that injuries, generally speaking, disrupt the pattern of football, of play in any team. You know, you make your plan, you set your stall out, you say this is how you want your team to be. We're going to play 3-5-2, and we've planned, and we sit down in the coaching rooms, in the coaching offices, and map out our strategy all the way through. And then all of a sudden, the big boy that we're actually hoping to play around and to play for is not there. Now, as a coach, it's easy to say, let's plan ahead. We can plan ahead. We can have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. But really and truly, as human beings, how much of a jolt will it be to somebody like Aliou Cisse, from which he's got to pick himself up immediately and show to the rest of the team, even if he wasn't feeling that confident, that, no, it should be okay. There are players that can take my place.
It's a good question. There are players that are just big. There are players that are symbols of a team. Mane is that kind of a player. It's not just a player. It's someone that people love and respect outside of football because of who he is. And I'm sure his teammates, they all respect him. And he's someone that has that influence. There are players that have that influence in the dressing room, that once they are there, they may not even be playing, but their presence is enough to, uplift the spirit of the team. And so it's a big blow, him not being part of them playing in the World Cup, because obviously there's no how they're going to miss Sadio Mane. There's no escaping it. If he's not playing, it's going to be felt. But the good thing about it is that the injury, well, there's nothing really good about it, but fortunately it came early enough that the coach could recognize that, hey, there's a possibility this guy is not going to play. We have to find someone that can replace him. It's not going to be easy, and the coach has no option. There's nothing else he can do. Someone has to take up that mantle. And sometimes things that seem like could be bad for a team could end up being a blessing, because somebody else could come up and fill in that spot. That is now up to the coach and his team, how he talks to his team. Hey, you know what? We are missing Mane, but come on, let's do this for him. We can't just say, okay, you know what, he's not here, then our dreams are over. This is a lifetime opportunity. And I'm sure that every player in that team wants to take advantage of this opportunity. So it is up for the coach to rally his boys, to say, you know what, let's go and show the world that we are a team, we are solid. And there's something I always stand by. I said, it's usually the best team that wins a football match. A team may have all the best players, but if they cannot come together as a team to play, then that's where you see upsets happening. Where you see a team with names that you don't know, but they are together, they have unity, they have one common goal, and they play together. You see them causing upset. You saw what South Korea did against Germany, how they defeated Germany 2-0 in the World Cup, the previous World Cup. So it's always a team effort. The coach has to pull that spirit for his team and say, you know what, boys, let's go and do this. Mane, we can keep talking about, oh, Mane is not going there. It's two things. Either they let it affect them negatively, or they can use that setback to rally the team positively for the entire nation. And I see Senegal doing that. That's why I'm tipping them to go to the next round, because many teams will be looking at them saying, you know what, Mane is not there, that star man is not there, and they will just underrate them, and they'll just, you know what, they'll just really not be ready for what they are going to see in the matches. So it's always a team effort. So I'm really, supporting them, and I know that they can do it.
Under a general look at the tournament now, we leave Mane, but in Africa, generally looking at our tournament, the World Cup, Africa has a few notable players that make the news all the time. And Mane is the news from Senegal. The news from Morocco is Hakim Ziyech of Morocco. He was frozen out of the team by the previous coach because of personal differences. He's come back in. Hakim Ziyech plays for Chelsea Football Club, used to play for Ajax. And by the way, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I know him very well. And Hakim came into the Morocco team, and he's integrated himself very well in the team, scored an absolute screamer in the last friendly they played about 2-3 days ago. And not many people are talking about them. But I tell you something, one of the biggest prides, we're jealous of it, of African football at the moment is coming out of Morocco. It's coming out of the administration of the game. It's coming out of the technical ability. The infrastructure that is in Morocco is absolutely wonderful. And you'll be surprised. The playing talent that comes out of the club sides, the local league in Morocco is wonderful. The national team is great. And they've got players, a star player like Hakim Ziyech. Yet, people are not giving them that much of a chance. Francis, why?
Morocco have always been a team where they've got talent, but they fail to perform on the big stage. I think out of all the times they've been there, I think only once or twice have they really performed. I remember there was one when they were in the group with England and they managed to get away with a 0-0 draw against the team when they had Brian Robson and Trevor Steven and Gary Steven in that time. And they impressed. And then after that, they had another good World Cup. I think with Morocco, they seem to be where we know they have a good team. We know everything's right about them. But they seem to be one of those national teams that sometimes have an in-house fighting where when they get to the tournaments, they don't click, they don't perform. There are some teams where you look at teams like I think like the Dutch, they had that similar problem as well. Everything was going for them. They had all the players. Everyone thought, this is they're going to win. But there was that in-house fighting with the team. The David Seedorfs, the Edgar Davids, the Kluiverts. I think Morocco seem to have that same personality as well. The talent, can't fault them. I've seen them play so many times, and they really they have it. The infrastructure, everything is there. But I think when they get to those tournaments, it's just that in-house disagreement or disability or that they have, that it doesn't let them perform. That's the way I've seen it with Morocco. I remember the very first time Morocco came out, I watched them in the 1980 African Cup of Nations when they were in Ibadan and they played against Egypt and then Algeria, and they had a tough group. And you thought, oh, they would get through. Again, they had that same problem, and Algeria got through, and then we met and it was Algeria in the finals, and that was the first time we won the African Cup of Nations. It's always that in-house fighting with Morocco, to be honest, and I just don't know when they're actually going to get over it. I know, as you said, you're a Chelsea fan, and Hakim Ziyech had his problems, but what was his problem with the coach? Why did he decide he wasn't going to play, or he decided, he had an injury, but yet he turned out for his club? These are the problems Morocco have. They have very good players. I think they even have, that the right back now he went from Inter Milan to PSG. He's a good player as well. They have players around the world. Even their league is very well run. Same with Tunisia and Egypt. But it's that in-house when they come together as one. It's like they don't just like each other, and that's their problem. If they could get that, eradicate all that, they'll be a very good team. They will go far. They are one I would consider a dark horse in this Qatar World Cup.
They've got a group that is quite tough, actually. They're going to be playing against Belgium, Croatia, and Canada. Now, I mean, on account of what happened a few days ago, Egypt that didn't even qualify for the World Cup.
Exactly.
So, hey, anything can happen. Now, we're going to spend the last few minutes talking about just having a general look at the tournament as a whole. We've got Francis, you're very, very versed and you're based in England, so there's a lot of hope for England. Having gotten to the finals of the European Championships only a year ago, what more is expected of England than to go all the way and win the World Cup for the first time in 56 years? We've got a France team that is holding the tournament at the moment, holding the current trophy, but are missing quite a few players. No Kante, no Benzema, no Pogba, no Nkunku. Oh, that's a bit difficult for them. We've got a Germany team that is in transition, and we've got a Brazil team that's probably got about 30-odd, late 30s players in their squad. Where do you see the favorites? Where do you see the pretenders in this tournament? Daniel.
All right. Before I go into that, I would also want to briefly talk about Morocco. And the reason why I did not put in Morocco as among the people I feel will leave the group stages is just basically their past records, and especially the people that are going to face in this group, like you mentioned. The first match is with Croatia. Now, the first match of the World Cup is very important. I don't see Morocco side defeating Croatia. They're going to play Belgium. They're going to play Canada, and Canada is no pushover. If you watch their qualifiers, you know that they're very good. I don't see this Morocco side getting a win. Probably a point, 2 points, that's it. So I don't really see them going out. They have good players. They're very, they have good administration in their leagues and the national teams. But when you get to the world stage, it's a different ball game. So I don't see them leaving the group stages. And as for the big names, in the World Cup, there are always teams that you look forward to. You know that they're going to go somewhere. They're going to go far. Probably the semi-finals. Names come into your head: Argentina, Brazil, France, because of the quality of players that they have. But then when you begin to really pick on these teams, you look at the injury scares they've been having. You see a Benzema that is not quite 100% sure is going to play. You begin to worry about what's happening or what's going to happen to them, because to be honest, we also know about what happens to teams that win the World Cup. You most likely tend to lose out in the first round. It's always repeated itself. France had the same thing in 2002. In 98, they won the World Cup. In 2002, they left out the group stages. Germany had the same problems as well. So is France going to have the same issue again? I don't know. But that's the beauty of football, is that we cannot always really predict 100%. We can look at it in paper and say, oh, they are good. But when it comes to football, man, it's what happens on the pitch that's really going to decide. And so France, they're a bit shaky now. I'm not really looking at them going to the semi-finals. They're a bit shaky. And the lack of that squad depth, especially in the defensive midfield, you see Pogba, you see Kante not going. Trust me, they may have good players going up front. But when you go to the quarterfinal, where you're going to play a team that's as good as you, and then their attack is also going to be hitting your defense very well, then you see that it's not just about your attack. You have to be solid in every area, of the team. So it's a very difficult one. France, most likely, are going to go to the quarterfinal. It's very much going to happen. I'm expecting to see Argentina there. Brazil, obviously. England, probably in the quarterfinal as well. They have a good side, but the problem is they also having the squad issues, in picking up the players. It's very funny, in this England team, lots of talent, but having to select players from a huge pool of talent is a very difficult one for any coach. Um, a nation like Uruguay is a nation people are not really talking about, but they have good players there. They could easily go to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, but people are not paying attention to them. For me, Belgium, I don't really see Belgium going too far in this competition. I think their golden generation it's almost over for them. I don't see them going to the semi-finals. People are tipping them to reach the finals, but I don't see that happening. I will be surprised if I see Belgium in the semi-finals. So it's a lot of teams are there, but I think I would be seeing Argentina in the semi-finals. Argentina, Brazil are the two teams that are most likely going to go there. Portugal, I think they're going to be out in the quarterfinals. I'm sorry for Ronaldo fans. I don't just see them. And again, most of the teams having really old players. The temperature, the weather, it is you can see that they're going to really suffer. Most of those players are not used to this condition, so it's going to show a lot of physicality. Teams that can really weather it out, that have the endurance to pull through, is going to be a good one for them. Aged players, it's going to be one of the big problems. How to survive the heat in Qatar. So there are a lot of dynamics that if this World Cup was held in Europe or Asia in June, July, probably my predictions would be a bit different. But it's in a very, very different situation. So the dynamics are just different. Nobody can easily predict. But I don't see many of these big teams like France and Belgium. I don't see them going to the semi-finals. If I'm to put my money on them, I don't see them going to the semi-finals. But I do see Argentina and Brazil, making it all the way.
Thank you. This is all that we probably would have time for on this occasion. It is Africa in Qatar 2022, a review and preview of African performance in the World Cup, brought to you by AFSCOAN, the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association, that association that aims to bring integrity, credibility, and an identity for African scouts and coaches in Africa for Africans. I will go with I want Argentina to win it for the sake of Messi. I think in the last week or two, everything that I have said in favor of Messi in the Messi-Ronaldo argument has come to pass. Messi, Ronaldo, a great player and another great player, but one that is focused on football and the other that is focused on showbiz. That's about it for me. That's about it from here. To join AFSCOAN, just email join@afscon.com. If you're an aspiring coach or an aspiring scout, we have a future for you at whatever level. Just join us. And don't forget also to subscribe to AFSCOAN on our YouTube channel. It's a brand new YouTube channel dedicated to you so that you can watch what we have got to offer. Our future editions will also feature a bit more technical in-depth as to the qualifier and the technical play on the field of play in our games in the World Cup. And I'm saying our for Africans. So until I see you again in a couple of days, and it won't be any longer than the next couple of days, please enjoy the opening game of the World Cup. Enjoy the opening round of the World Cup. Keep your chins up, and always, in the name of the African Football Club, think Africa. God bless you.